All right, so we're back. Yeah, I want to apologize for that last little bit of the first session for anybody that's watching this thing live. I had failed to mute the audio entirely that was coming from the YouTube playback of virtual red band. So we've got some audio contamination in there. I think for about the last 15 or 20 minutes, Mark Leota called me and said, hey, you got some audio coming in that you don't need. So hopefully that will not repeat itself, but you sort of live and learn. This segment, we're going to talk about racing, and I think this is going to be pretty interesting for all of us, and maybe anybody that's listening that has an interest in particularly amateur auto racing. And that's what we're going to be talking about primarily. This background behind us here is our local racetrack, and one of our two local racetracks here in Austin. This is Harris Hill, which is a track down in Kyle that I'm a member of. It's a kind of a country club racetrack where you can become a member of the track and you can use the facilities pretty much as you want to. They also have races there periodically, and we're going to talk about some of that and some of our participation in those races. Trice, I wanted to talk a little bit first, particularly with you. Certainly, Jay, feel free to
Yeah,
chime
no
in here
questions. Yeah.
about the amateur auto racing in general and where that's kind of come from, who knows where it's going, and where we have found a niche and where we've been participating in amateur automobile racing. We started this, Trice, about 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, 10 or 12. It's been quite a while.
Yeah.
Yep. And we started. So originally, we really started in Lemons, 24 Hours of Lemons, which is kind of the beginner entry place, I think. And I think it's bigger probably out in California than it is in Texas.
Yeah.
Seems to be more of a West Coast thing than an East Coast thing.
Yeah, you've got 24 Hours of Lemons, you've got Champ Car Endurance Series, and you've got World Racing League that all do endurance style amateur automobile racing. They all have somewhat different rule sets, and their rules have evolved over the years, so there's quite a bit of difference in those three. They all started out kind of the same, but they've evolved quite differently.
Yep.
Then you have the sprint type racing. That's been around a whole lot longer than the amateur endurance. SCCA, I think, probably was one of the original organizations that started amateur sprint racing. NASA sprang up, I don't know, they've been around 12, 15 years, something like that. SCCA's been around since, God, who knows how long, 70s, 80s, something like that. But there's fundamental differences in all those series. Like I say, SCCA and NASA tend to be individual racing, sprint racing type format. And it's a format where you have qualifying and then class racing throughout a weekend. And it usually takes a full weekend to, to get through a schedule for one of their events. And they're nationwide. NASA, SCCA are all around. As I say, it's individual racing. You're racing against other competitors in your class, but it's just you. And the races are relatively short, maybe 30 minutes at most. Every now and then they have some longer races, but anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes is typical for a sprint race, depending on the track, depending on the event. And that's been a very popular and kind of an entry level for a lot of people to get into automobile racing of any kind. And it's also a springboard, particularly some of the classes like Spec Miata, for example. And now that Mazda's become a pretty major sponsor and involved in both those series, you also have the later, trying to think what they call that, Trice.
MX5 Cup.
Yeah, MX5
Cup car
Cup.
series, yeah.
And that has elements of that can take you into pro racing, because you can get sponsorship from Mazda for people who, achieve championship level in the amateur division. There's opportunities for them to go on into pro racing, and who knows where that's going to go once you get your foot in the door for pro racing.
Yep.
The Endurance Series, though, is really amateur racing, and it's geared for amateurs. And it has a fundamental difference, and that is the entry-level requirements to get into those series are such that there's really no racing license required, whereas SCCA and NASA both have strict requirements that you have to go through driver's training, you have to go through, certification, and you cannot drive in any of their events unless you are a licensed driver for one of those two series. They allow cross licensing, so if you're licensed in one series, you can drive in the other, and vice versa, which is kind of nice. That was actually my entree into amateur automobile racing, although I wasn't a driver. I had a buddy that I worked for some years ago, and he was a very avid SCCA kind of guy. He'd been doing it for years, and I started helping him, being pit crew for him. Lynn Gilmore is no longer active in racing. We did many, many events at Texas World Speedway and various places. That kind of got me interested in it. But then the amateur endurance or team racing started becoming a factor. I think 24 Hours of Lemons was the first one of those that achieved any real notoriety. Is that not true, Trice?
Yeah, I think that's the first one I knew about or I'd ever heard of or seen.
Yeah.
And so, I think that is.
Yeah,
there may have been one out somewhere, a smaller one out on the West Coast.
And there are other. And by the way, these are not the only ones around the country. You've got
Lucky Dog
on the West Coast, which is a spinoff of both Lemons and Champ Car. And then you've got AER, American Endurance Racing, that's on the East Coast. There's probably other regional organizations that we're not going to talk about because we don't know enough to talk about them.
We know a lot about the three Lemons, Champ,
yeah, because we've raced in all
and
three
WRL,
of those.
because we've run a lot of races.
Yeah, so we're going to talk mostly about those series. The way Lemons started out, 24 Hours of Lemons, which is kind of a takeoff on the 24 Hours of Le Mans. It's more of a fun series, quite honestly. It's entry level. There's no driver's license requirement to participate in that series. And they got very strict limitations on the valuation, if you will, on the vehicles that can participate in that series. Was that one originally? They have the $500 valuation limit on the car.
They had some sort of limit. I don't remember.
I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
It's been so long. We only did a handful of Lemons races.
Yeah, but one of the things that Lemons did early on to try to keep people from bringing like a really hot car that would kill everybody was they had I forgot what they called it, but midway through the race they would stop the race and everyone would vote on the car they wanted to see crushed, and they would take that car and they would crush it.
Right.
So if you brought a car that just killed everybody, your car was going to get crushed. So nobody would bring a car that would do that, and you didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on your car because if you did and they got crushed, you were kind of out of luck.
Or if they didn't like it, everybody else didn't like you because the way you were driving.
Then you got your car crushed.
Which
so
makes perfect sense.
No, I mean it is a pretty good balance. I mean it was an easy way to kind of regulate it. You just let the crowd regulate it. But some people got upset about their cars getting crushed, and some people were, when they would stop, they would throw their car on a trailer and take off so the car didn't get crushed and stuff like that. So that kind of ended, and they put some rules on the value of horsepower and things.
Well, and also too, I think the other reality was even if your car, say, cost you $500 initially, by the time you put a roll cage in it and get it to where it's any kind of competition worthy,
Yeah.
you're going to have thousands of dollars in that car, and no telling how many hours of labor in that
Yes.
car. Any car, you
Yeah.
can't just. And by the way, all these series have, whether the Sprint series or the Endurance series, they all have very, very strict safety rules. They also have very, very strict driving rules. So it's not a free-for-all by any means.
No. Yeah, but I mean, the cages, they have very strict requirements on the cages, on what bars have to be there, the thickness, the metal, everything. You have to have fire systems, fire suppression systems in the car.
Seat
Kill
belts,
switches, certain SFI seat belts,
restraints,
containment seats,
helmets, gloves.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're as well equipped in these amateur cars as you would be in any pro race car by maybe not quite the same level, as none of them achieve
The speed.
the absolute speeds that
Yeah.
you're going to see in some of the more, in the pro NASCAR or Formula One or IMSA, something like that. You're never going to see these cars go 180 miles an hour.
No.
And road
WRL,
racing,
you might get close to that.
They-
They've got some
WRL
prototypes that are pretty darn fast.
WRL at Daytona, you might see,
Yeah.
150, 140 for some of the higher powered cars. I don't know.
Yeah. That one's kind of gotten to the top end of the cars from a performance perspective, a cost perspective. It's kind of on the upper end. And they don't have a licensing there, but they do want to see a license or a level of experience before.
Yeah, I
they'll
think
let you
they have
race.
an.
You have to bring a resume and say this is all the
Right.
races I've done.
Because that, it kind of brings us to the three series. The Lemons, 24 Hours of Lemons, kind of more entry level. It could be a very fun series. They usually have big turnouts. I mean, they've been known to have over 100 cars in an event, believe it or not. We raced with them, maybe the first couple of years that we were getting into, because we were trying to get seat time,
Right.
trying to get experience.
Right.
And that's what it takes, unless you've got some kind of natural talent. The only way you're going to get better is more time behind the wheel and open wheel competition, wheel to wheel, or not open wheel, but wheel to wheel competition. And then a spinoff from 24 Hours of Lemons was Chump Car. They call it Chump Car back then. That was kind of a funny name. It's evolved into something now called the Champ Car Endurance Series. And then we have another series that was a spin-off of Chump Car, which is World Racing League. And those are really the three top ones today.
Yeah, certainly in our area.
Well, I don't know. I think even nationwide, probably.
Yeah,
Maybe the West Coast. I mean, that's the land of fruits and nuts. So we don't know we don't know exactly what's going on out there. But Lucky Dog is out there also. If we didn't mention that.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it, but I'll mention it again. Because that's also quite a good series, I think, from what I see of it. But nonetheless, then you got Champ Car, which was an evolution of Chump Car, and they started out with a $500 rule also on cars, which has also evolved now into, they just call it points, they don't call it valuation. They've expanded the car eligibility, so I think cars up to maybe 10 years old can now participate in Champ Car. They've got an approved list of cars, and your car has to be on that list. There's hundreds of cars on that list, so it's not like there's any shortage of opportunities to race different types of cars, although there are some cars that come from the factory that are easier to convert or more likely to be successful if success is your goal. Depends on what your goal is. And then World Racing League, WRL, it evolved out of Chump Car. It started out almost identically the same as Chump Car. I can't remember if there were any real differences in the rules when they first started or not, Trice.
There was the one on fueling was a little different.
Yeah, pit stops and fueling are different. Yeah,
but there wasn't really a lot. I mean, the values, the cars could go from one to the other, and it was pretty much the same. But it's evolved over time. Champ Cars evolved, but so has WRL.
WRL was more class oriented as far as
Yep.
classing the cars, whereas Champ Car, there's really two different means to be successful in those events. Either you can win your class or you can win overall, which means you've won over every car in the field, regardless of the class. The focus of Champ Car used to be on the overall. It's now shifted a little bit to where you do get class trophies and you do get overall trophies. WRL, I don't think it's ever been overall. I think it's always been class. It's always racing against cars that are in class.
They have big deltas in their performance, though, too. Their top class from their bottom class. There's a significant performance delta.
Yeah, their classing is based on horsepower and weight primarily, whereas Champ Car is based on displacement, and weight is not a factor. I don't know about Lemons Trice, how the classing worked.
I don't remember. It's been so long.
It's been so long since we've done it. And I remember it was a lot of fun because we did Eagles Canyon events with Lemons. We did we do any at Texas World?
I'm sure we did. Everybody raced
MSR. I know we did at MSR.
Yeah.
And we went to Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama and did a Lemons event.
Yeah. And Lemons does a...
I think we did a couple of those.
When you go through Lemons, when you go through Tech, you know, the teams dress up in costumes and they have the cars match the theme, and they bribe the judges with alcohol, and so it's not as serious a race, and it's a little more have a good time.
But they have a lot of fun. The guys that
do.
participate
Absolutely.
have a lot of fun.
Absolutely. If you want to go have fun racing, it's a really good series.
And you'll never meet a nicer bunch of people than you'll find in Lemons. That was my experience as far as the participants.
Yep, people don't get upset about
The
things.
WRL that we were talking about, it's evolved considerably since it started, as it's become almost like a Pro-Am series. It's evolved towards more of an IMSA style event, and it tends to attract the higher dollar, higher horsepower cars, and it also tends to attract more of the arrive and drive type of teams. Now, all the series have that. I mean, typically, you don't even have to have a car. All you have to do is find somebody that wants a driver and is willing to sell you a seat, and then you can drive in that event. WRL has moved more to making it more commercial. So I think there are more teams that are doing arrive and drive. They may have a couple of core drivers, and then they sell out the other seats to kind of pay for their participation in the event. And there are higher powered. I don't think there's any limit on the age of the car either.
No, I don't think so.
And
they've got some brand new Audis that are racing in that thing.
Yeah, and they've opened up another class that's even a higher level of performance, I think, for next year at WRL.
Yeah. And they've got some factory Audi race cars for sure.
But they have been very successful, just like Champ Car and Lemons. I mean, we race around the country. There's almost no name racetrack around the U.S. that doesn't host one or more events during the year for one of those series. I mean, we've raced the Circuit of the Americas here in Austin, which is a Formula One track. You don't get any better tracks than that.
Right.
We've raced at Road America, raced at Laguna Seca out in California. We raced at Watkins Glen up in New York.
Sonoma.
Sonoma in California. I mean, those are bucket lists for most people. Texas Motor. We even raced at Texas Motor Speedway up in Dallas. I was still driving then. I don't drive anymore, but I never thought I would ever drive a race car on Texas Motor Speedway, but I did. Anyway, Jay, we don't want to bore you too much with the series that we're familiar with, but I know you've also got some series experience. Yeah, series I don't know much about, but you want to go ahead and tell us about that?
Yeah, during college, I joined a program called FSAE, which is a Formula Society of Automotive Engineers, put on a competition between a lot of international and national colleges to build a open wheel type of race car that you would pretend to sell to SCCA teams to create kind of what you were talking about, like arrive and drive type of program where you would try to sell potential customers on this new type of race car.
Does that look like it?
Yep. That was our 100 car. That car was actually turbocharged. So the competition revolves around having to add a restrictor to a 600cc or similar volume engine car. So the power was limited for a lot of the teams. So the other technical challenges were, well, with this limited power you have, how fast can you do autocross courses, straight acceleration events, dynamic events like doing figure eights, measuring G-forces and things like that. So it was very much like a strictly engineering competition by a bunch of engineers, either electrical, mechanical engineers in college who decided to join these teams. And generally, the colleges will fund these projects, and there's other companies around the area of the colleges that will often donate, time or resources to help you build and design these cars. So that's how I got involved early on, kind of in college with racing. Before that, I was more into just like drifting and doing, not really like street racing, but, hopping up or adding more performance to a street car and just having fun with it. But then when I got to college and started doing this, I got more involved in the actual engineering challenges. I did a lot of wiring and other things for these cars. So I got a lot of hands-on experience. And I think that's really important, especially for different racing series. If you ever wanted to kind of go in that path of engineering or maintenance teams and working on that, it was a great kind of hands-on experience in college that I didn't have to put a lot of money into. Of course, you got to go to college to do it, but it was and you meet a lot of different people. I met a few other fellow engineers, a company that I work for, and other companies that started FSA teams, and it's something that you can talk with a lot of different engineers about, kind of participating in college. This is our 100 car. That was a video of me driving it in our college parking lot. I think at like the minute 50 mark, or the steering wheel of the car kind of pops off a little bit. They have like a quick disconnect steering wheel to get in and out of the car because it's really cramped. So I had to kind of force it back on there because we were using the wrong wheel when we were testing. But it's completely open wheel. And you participate in events kind of like this, like it's like an autocross course in giant parking lots. There's not a lot of elevation change. But it's very fun racing. If you don't have to put a lot of money you put a lot of your time into building these. And what's great too is a lot of teams for alumni will actually gift the older cars. Because a part of this racing series is every year or two you have to develop a new car. Has to have like 70% can be reused, but at least 30% has to be kind of new designs, different changes made to cars. And a lot of the teams get very serious. There's a lot of international teams who have a lot of backing from F1, a lot of alumni that had went on to do a lot of the engineering for other race teams, and car companies started doing this.
So, about what was your age when you were doing this?
So I was 19, between 19 and 22, 23.
And where was this specifically?
So this specifically
There's a wheel coming off.
I think you got the code.
Yeah, I got oh no, put it back.
Don't aim for the codes. You aim to miss the codes, man.
I was a little distracted with the wheel, losing the wheel.
This is actually fun to watch.
Oh yeah. It's a lot of fun.
We're watching this on a big screen, by the way.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys can't tell that, but we're watching it on my 55-inch screen, whatever it is, 60-inch here in front of us.
So this in particular is in Georgia, just like 45 minutes north of Atlanta, northwest of Atlanta, in a parking lot. It used to be a school called Southern Polytech. It's now called Kennesaw State University. That's where I went to school and participated in this. A lot of the team members that I helped participate and build these cars went on to go work at like SpaceX, go to work at Tesla, like what I do, and a lot of different Elan Motorsports is over in that area. So a few people went to work there, and it was a great experience. And you meet a lot of very talented people who are dedicated and want to build race cars. And I kind of race on the school's budget a little bit, not so much their budget because we're all in college. But it was great. It was a great experience. It taught me a lot about engineering, and and had added a lot of hands-on skills that I use now in my job, even today. But yeah, that's
engineering's a lot of it. I mean, there's so much engineering that goes into it. That's in my opinion, it's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, there's me right there with the red sweater, the afro, almost hair. Like in college, I think that's a '69 car, and I don't know if that's a 100 car, but those are two different generation cars that the team built. It's almost every 2 years they build a new car, so it's pretty awesome.
That is very, very cool, Jay.
Talladega.
Yeah, Talladega Speedway in Alabama. I think we went to Barber Motorsports too. Did some events there.
Oh, you've been to Barber also?
Yep.
We've raced there a few times.
Yeah, that is
a beautiful place.
Goodness gracious.
That is the Disneyland of racetracks.
Yeah, they just don't get much better than that.
Yeah. So it was a great experience. And then every year at I think Lincoln, Nebraska, and I know Ford has a proving grounds in Michigan. They hold these huge events with international teams flying in. A lot of these teams have huge budgets, like $1 million budgets to build their cars. We were kind of just shoestring budget and trying to get, we'll put your company's name on our car, kind of advertising that we could do to try to raise funds to build those. But it was great.
Awesome. Well, let me come back to some things that I know about. Trice, we were talking a little bit about our racing experience, but I want to go back to something here. Rick Sosa sent me this picture today, and this is actually, I think, maybe before I knew you.
Yeah, that was before we may have known each other, but I wasn't racing for you at that time. So I was still driving for Jack Kinkle, which is where I started driving, which is how I met you, because you knew Jack, and that's how I ended up. Ultimately, I ended up starting to drive for you. Yeah. Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, here's the thing that bothers me the most about that. That's me in the picture there. That bothers me a whole lot.
I know everybody but the young guy with the non-full face mask helmet in his hand. Everybody else there
I believe that's
I know.
Drew's son, if I'm not badly mistaken.
That makes sense, yeah.
Trying to get rid of...
I don't know whose Porsche that is.
That's Rick's.
Oh. He doesn't have that anymore, does he?
Trying to get rid of that. Trying to get rid of... camera one. I don't remember how to get rid of it. Anyway.
Rick and I split the table at Kill Tony every Monday.
Yeah, that's Rick behind
the blue
me
shirt,
in the picture. Now, comparing me to that, I don't know. Now, I used to dye my hair back then. My hair was going gray at that time. It's completely gray now.
You were probably living large at that time too, Joe.
There was a little more going on that probably shouldn't have been going on at that time.
Yeah. Some of the stories I know, you were living pretty large.
So, yeah, we had gone down to an HPDE, I think, at Harris Hill.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew you then. If I did, it was very vaguely.
Right. I was probably buying parts from you or something.
You might have bought that red car from me.
I did buy that red car from you.
Maybe in that same era. I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
But
93 Miata.
I was working with Drew at the time, the guy
in the middle there.
My right in the picture. I was working with Drew, and I'd known Rick for years, and we had decided that we wanted to get into racing, and so we figured we needed some training and experience. They had a driver training day at Harris Hill that was open to the public, and we signed up for that and went down. I think that was our first time ever on the racetrack that particular day.
Wow.
Something like that. That's the best I recall.
And they have a lot of high performance driving events like all over the country, don't they?
Tons, yeah. They got them at COTA. You can, there's these groups that show up that you can, you pay money. They bring the cars. They bring really nice cars, and you do laps on the different tracks. They do it at Harris Hill. They do it all over the place, yeah.
But now to come into an era that you're more familiar with, Trice.
There you go. There you go, the old Limonada. So that was Jack Kinkle's car. My daughter painted those lips on the front of it, that yellow one there. That was the car I started racing in, actually. It is now deceased.
Somewhere in that era, and this is probably, that picture was probably taken 10 years ago at least.
At
maybe
least.
more. You were driving for Jack in that yellow 03 car.
Yeah, I think that's me in the car,
It
actually.
might be the Limonada.
Yep.
That green car is my race car that I currently own, and I had just bought it. Did I know you when I bought that car?
Yes.
I guess I
Yes.
did.
I was racing for you some.
In that car. You might have
Yeah.
even driven that
Yeah,
car that
I did.
day.
I did, because we had multiple cars. That is at, I want to say that's at Eagles Canyon.
No, that's Harris Hill.
Is it?
Yeah, I know for
Okay.
sure that was taken at Harris Hill.
Yeah, there was a time when I was driving for both of you guys, and I'd drive for both of you at the same race. So it was like I was jumping from one car to the other there for a while.
'Cause I remember you had told me this story that you had done that race at Eagles Canyon where you guys had all kinds of trouble with the brakes and
Yes.
ended up taking the brakes
Yes.
off your street Miata,
Yes.
which must have been that red car.
It was the red one that I
It
bought
must
from
have
you.
been the red car I sold you. You took the brakes off it and put them on the race car so you
Yep.
could finish the event.
Yep, and then I took somebody's rental car and went down and got more brakes to put on my street car so I could drive it home, which was good because all we ruined the other set on the Limonada and the next day, so I wouldn't have been able to get home.
That would have been scary. Driving home and all of a sudden, oh no.
Yeah, the brakes went out. I was in the yellow car the first time the brakes went out. I went into that back straightaway, and it's, you slam on the brakes and make a left-hand turn, and it's probably the fastest place of the track. And I hit the brakes, and there was absolutely nothing. I mean, the pedal just went to the floor. And when we pulled it apart, the caliper, the brake pad, and the piston were all melted into one piece of metal. Yeah, it was not good. It was not good. We didn't have any good pads.
Yeah, there's the full view. I finally figured out how to get back to the full view.
And the green car is not green anymore. It's our yellow number 6 car.
Well, that car, let me come back to that.
Yeah, it's been through a few iterations.
Let me go back. Let me put something up here. Where is that picture? Dang. Oh, yeah, here it is. This is collage.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
There we go.
There's all the iterations. Yeah,
Well,
pretty much.
yeah, there's both iterations of the green car. That's the way it was when I first bought it there in the upper left. And that's the way we raced it early on. That's actually at Texas World, and I believe that might be a NASA event, if I'm not badly mistaken. It was Rick Sosa or Drew
Yeah.
drove that car in a NASA event.
Looking at the numbers on the side.
It looks like Drew in the car with that red suit on and white helmet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we raced that car for a while in. Did it ever race in Lemons? I don't think it ever did.
I don't think it did. I think it just chump car.
Yeah, I don't remember. But anyway, then we got all excited about building a BMW.
Well, yeah, there's a story. Well, what happened is we went to Hallett and we
Yep.
had the green car.
Probably had the green car at that time.
We did, and there was a bunch of BMWs there, and there's that one corner where you got to almost come to a stop, and then you got to climb a hill, and the BMWs were killing us because they had more horsepower and torque.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got in the car and you said, "We're building a BMW." That was it. So we spent about a year building the black one there, the 99
the 99
car.
car. Yeah, that car, I drug that car out of downtown San Antonio out of somebody's backyard. I mean, it was a piece of junk. It literally was.
The transmission, the motor was in the trunk, and the transmission was hanging by a piece of baling wire from one of the windshield wiper stocks when it showed up, and it was still like a street car, so it had seats and carpet and everything in it. It was the filthiest car I've ever seen in my life. It was disgusting.
Oh man.
Yeah, it took us a long time to get it cleaned up.
So when we developed the '99 car, I sold that green car
Yep.
to
Kinkle.
Jack Kinkle, the guy that owned the
Limonada.
Limonada, because he had sold the Limonada
Yep.
and then decided he needed another car, so he bought the green car. And we raced the '99 car for several seasons.
Yep.
And Jack raced that green car for a while, and then they took it to that event at Texas World. I don't know if I got that picture or not. I don't think I put it in here where I can get to it easily. I want to stay away from negative stuff anyway.
It had some challenges.
It got into a real bad wreck, and I bought it back and rebuilt it.
Yep.
And turned it into the yellow car, which is now the number 6 car on the right, and that is my current race car.
Yep. That's what it looks like.
And there, for a period of time, we had the '99 car and the 6 car,
Yep.
the yellow 6 and the black '99 BMW. And that lasted maybe a couple of seasons. I decided that's
It's a lot of work.
2 cars is 3 times more trouble
Yeah.
than 1 car. Believe me,
Yep.
it's really bad.
It was nice because you could pick which car you wanted for which track. So if you were doing a real high horsepower track like Laguna Seca, then the '99 car was the car to go. But if you were doing like a Hallett or a
Harris Hill,
man, then the Miata is.
Because then you need the handling.
Yeah. I call it the cat because you just throw it anywhere. It's like it's got claws. Yeah. The BMW is a big, it's kind of top heavy a little bit.
Then the other 3 cars down there at the bottom, that 188 car, that was a car that was actually given to me. That was back in an era where I used to buy and sell Miatas and Miata parts. And I had an ad up on Craigslist for some Miata stuff. And I got a phone call one day. And some woman on the phone I didn't know, and she said, "Hey, do you want a Miata?" I said, "Maybe." I said, "What's the deal on it?" She said, "Well, it broke down on me out on Southwest Parkway, and I'm afraid when it gets towed away, I'll get fined for abandoning the car. Would you want it?" And I said, "Okay, well, I guess so." So I got a dolly and went out and pulled the car in. And she came over to my house and actually bought another car for me that I was selling at the time. And gave me this one, gave me what became that purple car. And then a buddy of mine, Drew, who was in that first picture, he wanted to build a spec Miata. So we proceeded to build that car. And it raced as a spec Miata for a while. And then he dropped out of racing. He got married and to a new wife. And there's nothing like a new wife or a new baby to get you out of racing.
Yep.
I mean, it
The
happens
finances.
almost like it's almost
takes a lot of time too.
almost guaranteed. So anyway, I inherited that car back from him, and we ended up converting that to an endurance car. And then I ended up selling it this past year, so I don't have that car anymore. And then that 799 car at the bottom, that's actually a clone of the 99 car. The 99 car, our original E30, it had a lot of track time on it. It was kind of getting to the end of its life.
Yep.
So it was time to retire it. Well, my buddy Rick Hill in Houston, who had been racing with us often, decided he wanted to build an BMW E30, and he found one in Houston, and he and I and others ended up basically cloning the 99 car into another, lower race miles car, and that's still an active car that we campaign around the country, and Trice drives for him oftentimes.
Yep.
And I go to and help out with those events. And then the other car on the right, the 93 car, that's the newest car that I have any dealings with. The car actually belongs to a friend of mine, John Babot, who also drives with us some. And he decided he wanted to build, he had raced Miatas, earlier Miatas, much of his racing career in SCCA and NASA, and decided he wanted to get in more into the endurance thing. And so I found that car for him, and he ended up buying it, and we spent about 6 months turning it into a race car. And it has now raced, I think, 3 events. All of our racing has been impacted up till in 2021 by the pandemic. Very little was going on in 2019 and 2020, but 2021 has been was kind of a resurgence year for racing. Mm-hmm. And then we built that car in 2021 and ended up racing it a couple of times. In fact, we were just at an event at Laguna Seca with that car.
Yep.
And did pretty well with it. It's a good car.
Yep. We've raced the 799 at Laguna. I'm not sure if we raced the 99 there, but that 799, that's at
Laguna.
Watkins
Yeah,
Glen.
the 99 was at Laguna.
Was it?
Yeah.
I know it raced at Watkins Glen, which is where that 799 picture's at. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've raced quite a bit.
How long have you guys had the Aero on the 93 car, like the front lip spoiler, the rear spoiler?
The yellow one?
Or
the red one?
Yeah.
Well, it was built like that.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
built
we
like
built
that.
it like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
As the trend
Aero
has
is the
been
kill.
towards
Yeah.
more and more aero.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, it is incredibly beneficial, more so
Yes.
than you would ever believe.
Mm-hmm.
As far as your ability to drive the car through turns, doesn't help you that much, straight away, but helping you drive the car through turns, it's very, very beneficial.
Yeah, so you see on the little yellow number 6 car, there's a little bitty kind of plexiglass wing on the back of that car.
Yeah.
It's
got a girty
Oh,
flap.
yeah.
it's just a
okay,
little
now I see
bitty
it.
It's
little
got a
bitty
girty
wing with a
flap
little
on
bitty
it.
flap on it,
Yeah.
right?
Oh.
And I can tell you that we have another trunk, and we wanted to see how much of a difference it made. So
Yeah.
we ran some laps with it, with that trunk on, put the other trunk on. It is night and day.
Oh, wow.
Absolute night and day. Yeah, it's amazing. Just that little piece of plexiglass with the edge on it makes all the difference.
But when you add the wing and the front
Yeah,
Front spoiler.
splitter,
you balance it out.
you have to add the splitter to balance out the downforce of the wing. But that's that's an order of magnitude improvement in the
Yeah.
way the car will handle.
Yeah, seconds a lap.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's
Kinda things.
it's seconds a lap.
On a short track, it's seconds a lap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting seeing the kind of iterations you guys have.
Yeah.
And then
The
go to
red car
Series
has some
Aero.
high-end aero on it.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you buy that wing kit that's
Yeah.
on that's a NC iteration of the Miata. So that's like the previous generation to the current generation.
Okay, yeah.
That's a 2008 car,
Yeah.
that red car.
Yeah, so
The
it's a
6
fair
car is 1990 car. The 99 car was a 1987 car, as is the 799. That's a 1987 car. And then the 188 car was a 97 Miata
Okay.
when they started. So, do a little chatter there. I'm going to bring something else up here. Actually, I've got some race video that I'm going to show
Yeah,
some clips of.
as the sports evolved, especially the series have evolved. So it's like Champ Car, right? Now aero is the way, because you're limited in what you can do from a handling perspective, what you can do, from shocks and things like that. You're limited on what you can do with the motor. So there are points for putting the aero on, but it's the value you get from speed versus the number of points you spend. It's worth spending the money on the aero because that's where you're getting the performance.
Oh, yeah.
And it really, really makes a huge difference in how the car handles. It's all that and tires. I mean,
Yeah, the best tires
buy
you can
good
get.
tires, yeah. Yeah, and they don't last long,
Nope.
and they're expensive.
They make them really sticky.
Yeah. So this is some cool stuff that Joe's done. And so you guys know Joe's the engineer, right? He designs everything, and then I'm like his monkey. He tells me what to do, and I do it and wrench on things. But he's built we live stream all of our races. He's built all that with the Raspberry Pro. It live streams up. It's got a little bit of a delay in it, but it's not bad. We also have live telemetry coming from the car, which is what you see here. And so Joe can just look at his phone, and he can tell exactly what's going on in the car while we're out there driving around in the track. And see down there on the bottom, he can tell when we miss a shift and when we go over the rev limiter.
That's actually the page for John's car. It's got some more features on the telemetry. It's got some more features on telemetry for it than we have on the yellow car, because it's.
Joe can even program the ECUs. So now that we're running these programmable ECUs in the cars, we can tune the car to do whatever we want it to do. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's a web page that I created on. I've got a Linode server.
Okay.
That's a web page I created on that server, and the car has an app that runs in the camera. It actually runs in the camera hardware that uses web sockets to send the telemetry data to the server, which gets displayed on that web page. And so all you have to do is bring that page up on your phone, and you can see what's going on in the car. It's really, really useful.
So you get the full camera of video of the car driving plus all the telemetry.
Yep.
Well,
not in the same picture.
not
Not in the same picture.
No,
You can do that, but
this is strictly a phone app
okay.
to see the telemetry. Now
Joe checks it occasionally. He's also developed these lights that we've put. Literally, they'll burn your eyeball out if you're not careful. One if the car loses oil pressure, one if the car gets hot. And then we have another one that tells you when you're running, if you're running out of gas. So we have a way that's a little more sensitive than just a gauge to tell you when you're out of gas. So if you really got to run to the end, you can literally run to the end with this thing. But yeah, it works great. And if there's any little issue when you're driving, you can just kind of, hey, the car's doing something funny with the temperature, and then Joe can watch it and talk to you while you're driving. You don't have to worry so much about the gauge. He can tell you what's going on in the car.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. That's the 6 car at Harris Hill.
That's you driving
Yep.
also.
Yep.
Nice.
I have a tendency to use strong language, so I have a parental warning on my board. And then there's also, for those of you that know SpongeBob SquarePants, there's a little thing there that you might understand. Not everybody will get it, but some people will. That's a lot of fun. We'll be there March 12th and 13th.
That was just from this last
Was it?
September.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
we won.
we won, and we got second on the second.
We won on the first day, and we're second on the second
Yeah.
day.
Yep.
Passing on the outside.
Yep.
Doing that speed.
I had a lot more speed than he did.
Oh, yeah.
You're going pretty fast going into that corner right there. That car goes pretty quick up there.
Somewhere there was a clip in
Drop down the
here.
hill.
For some reason, you weren't in much traffic.
There's Verhoof.
There was one that David was in a whole bunch of traffic. I don't know if I can find it or not.
Yeah, it's a fun little track. It's anything. You get your laps down around 130 or less, you're going pretty good, and so it's not a big track. The beauty of it is you can see the whole track from the clubhouse because it's up on a hill, and so you can actually see. There's just one little corner you can't see. Most tracks you can't do that. You see one section and that's all. Like Coda, right? If you've ever been to a race at Coda, there's just small sections you can actually see. But yeah, this Harris Hill is pretty fun. We do pretty well there. It's our local track. We know it pretty well.
There's still a pretty good amount of elevation change.
Oh yeah,
too.
yeah, it's got quite a bit for where it is. And
This is down at Kyle.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This corner right here, you can go through full throttle, but boy, it takes you a little while to build up the courage to get through it. Yeah, and then the fastest point of the track is up here at the top of the hill, because you're full throttle coming out of that corner all the way up to the top of the hill. I don't know if there was ever the video when they had the rainstorm, but the track used to not drain. I think they've got it fixed now.
Oh, I've got
and
a
we
picture
called it
of
the
that price. I'll bring that up here
yeah,
in just
the
a minute.
submarine races, as we call it. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's another thing. Unlike the Sprint Series, these amateur endurance series, they race in the rain.
Yep.
There's the only time they'll call a race is if there's lightning.
Yeah, because they can't have corner workers.
Yeah.
We've raced in the snow, freezing rain,
snow,
ice,
rain.
crazy stuff. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And here's where you'd really feel with that wing, because this is a really fast corner right here, this section right here. So you're full throttle in fourth gear coming through here. And right there, without that wing, you couldn't do that full throttle. It would just
so
you'd feel like you were going to lose it. Same thing here.
Lift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with just that little bit, it makes all the difference in the world. Yep. And we didn't believe it, so that's why we brought the trunk and we switched it out, and we're like, oh my God.
That does.
Difference.
Yeah, David, I think, was the first. The guy that's driving right now. He was the first one that went out and tested with it, and he had it on to begin with, and did a couple laps. And we took it off, and he went back out, and he did like 2 laps, and he came back in. And he said, "I want that trunk lid back on."
Back on.
Yeah, where is that? What happened to that? I need that arrow, man. I
Yeah.
can't drive the car like this.
Yeah, you couldn't. It was pretty crazy. Yeah, that race we actually won it in the last 30 minutes. We were in third place going into the last 30 minutes. One car ahead of us, their exhaust system fell out, and they had to come in and fix that. And then the other one threw a rod through the side of the motor with like 10 minutes to go, and we were right behind them, so we were able to make the pass and get the win that day. Yeah.
It's never a good day when you lose the rod.
No.
The engine.
You know, it's
destroys
funny in
everything.
these series because, Joe and I have this conversation all the time. It's not the guy who runs the car that runs the fastest lap, right? Rarely ever wins the race. It's all about you got to run good laps. You don't have to be the fastest, but you got to be right in there within a second or two, and you got to have perfect pit stops, and you got to have absolutely no mechanicals. Because if you have any little, the competition's so good now that if you have any little glitch, you're going to lose a minute or two, and that's enough that you're going to lose the race.
Yeah.
You won't win.
Yeah.
So, and it's not about running that fastest lap. It's about running really good laps for 8 hours with no bobbles, right? One off-track excursion, and you're out of it at that point. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it probably took us, I don't know, 3 or 4 years of racing before we got to a level that we could actually win at the race, right? We'd struggle to finish, and then we'd learn some things, and we'd get a little better, and we'd engineer something a little different, and then we just kept working our way, getting better and better and better, and we were getting to be better drivers all the time, right? So it's all those kinds of things, and that's how we just built up to where we are now. And it's fairly competitive. We got good cars and well-built, decent drivers.
Yeah, there's an ad on my channel. I think.
Again.
Wow. You can skip it, can't you?
I think so.
Yeah. And then they want to sell
Show
you
this
their
video
YouTube.
also.
So this is the corkscrew at Laguna Seca.
This is kind of cool.
I mean, it's like falling off a 2-story building right there. When you make that turn, you can't see the track in front of you in the car. It is crazy. It's the most change.
There's really no other turn on racetracks like that. Laguna Seca.
No,
I've
there's
heard a
no
couple-
drop like that.
Yeah, heard a couple mimic it, but nothing with that kind of elevation change.
Right, because it's literally a mountain that you're coming off of on that
Yeah.
back section. And then this is almost a dead stop, and then it's a drag race up to start finish. You go up over the top of the hill, and then slam on the brakes and turn back and go the other direction. Yeah, that is an awesome. That's one of my favorite tracks. It's not as scary as Watkins Glen. Watkins Glen, if you mess up a little bit at Watkins Glen, you're in big trouble because that blue Armico is right there.
Yeah.
There's no
No
room,
runoff, hardly
none
any
at all.
runoff anywhere.
Where here you can see you've got runoff and gravel traps and stuff. So if you go off, you're not going to kill yourself. So it's not as scary, but if you can get in a rhythm on this track, man, you can really move. You can really move along. And so this is all fairly flat down the bottom here, and you're going to make this right-hander, and right here it starts up, and that's a lot steeper in real life than what you're seeing in that video. Coming up under this bridge, I mean, that's a steep hill.
It is a very steep hill.
And then it's a full throttle through this corner pretty much, and there's a little catch, and you can give it a little more oomph and then you're still going uphill, right? And then there's a little kink up here at the top, and then slam on the brakes, and then you turn back to the left, and then you're going to immediately go back to the right, and you're aiming at a tree because you can't see the track. And then you're going straight down right here.
Yeah.
It's crazy how steep that is. And you're still going down, but it's a little less steep. And then you get to the flat about right here. So, yeah, it's unbelievable.
And you got a 90-degree turn
right here.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're almost, depending on where you are, you're second or third gear right there. And then your fifth gear going over the top of the hill. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's a fun track. I love that track.
Yeah, Trice had one of his best experiences at that track.
It was right before COVID, actually.
Was that right before COVID?
Yeah, it's right before COVID. Yeah, in the 799 car. So I get in the car. We're in second place, and they say, we're a minute and a half behind. We're just gonna sit back here. We're not gonna, we're not gonna try to catch them. Just run, just run nice laps. That's all you need to do is just sit there and run nice laps. They're not gonna catch us from behind. We're not gonna catch them. So let's just go. I was like, all right. So I get in the car and I'm doing my stint. I'm running my laps, and Danny gets on the radio about 10 or 15 minutes in, and he goes, if you can get 2 seconds a lap more, we can catch them. And I was like, I can do that. So we lit it up a little bit, sped up, started catching. They're giving me splits every time I roll on the straightaway. They're going, he's this far ahead, he's this far ahead, he's this far ahead. I rolled on one time and it was like, that's him. And I was like, oh man. So 2 hour stint, I caught him with probably 30, 40 minutes to go in the race.
I don't think it's even that much twice.
It was a while.
It was a little while.
Yeah, it was enough to make you really nervous.
Yeah,
So
he might actually gain back.
Yeah, so I finally got around him, but I never could open a gap. I never got more than, I think, 4 seconds on him.
Never,
right? He stayed right on me. And so it's just nose to tail for like 20, 30 minutes. And the last, I think we ended up winning the race by 4/100ths of a second.
It was almost
that.
nothing.
Yeah, it was. We were just neck and neck.
Yeah.
This is the submarine races.
Yeah,
Look at that.
Yeah, you were mentioning that earlier, Trice. I was going to come back to that.
Yeah, that water was about 3 or 4 inches deep there. You just turn and point the car straight and through the water and then get back on it again. Look at all the tire tracks where everybody's gone off the track.
I was trying to remember if we ever raced the 99 car there at Harris Hill, but obviously we did in that rain race.
Yeah.
Because I went back and found that picture on Harris Hill's website.
And you had to plan where you were going to be, because if you were next to that car that hit in that water, you see that water coming up, it's coming right in your window.
Yeah,
so.
there's no side windows.
Yeah, that was a crazy day. That was crazy.
Yeah, like you say, if you look at this mud in the foreground here, it's like that was a really popular place for people to go off. If you got in there, most likely you're not going to get out. Yeah, that was. I don't think we did very well because the BMW was terrible in the rain.
Yeah, it was hard to drive. It was a beast.
It was too stiff to drive very well in the rain.
Yeah, you touch the throttle and you just start spinning.
Yeah. It was a fun event, though.
It was.
I've seen a lot of racing in the rain, but not through ponds.
Yeah, I think they fixed that. They resurfaced the track, and I think they've fixed it now. So
drainage
it's not
issue.
So bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put any pictures up of it, but that brings me back to something I was going to mention. The shirt I'm wearing, the 37. Now, talk about endurance racing.
Yeah.
That was in Champ Car, and that was in 2014.
Wow.
And what they were doing every season is they would have a race that they extended and made it longer. Every year they make it longer and longer and longer. I don't really know how far back it went. But that year it was 37 hours of racing.
Yep.
And we took 2 cars. We took the
Kinkle's car and your
car. We took the green car and we took the 99 car. So we had 2 cars. We had 2 teams. We had like
8 drivers.
At least 8 drivers and several helpers. And that was at Eagles Canyon.
Yep.
It started, probably Saturday morning,
Early.
first thing,
Yep.
and ran through late Sunday afternoon.
Yep.
And it's already cold when we got up there, cold, kind of drizzly, miserable. Kind of got worse and worse during the day on Saturday.
Saturday night it was a
remember
full-on blizzard, I think.
I don't remember that we were doing particularly well, but
No.
we were hanging in. And Saturday night, man, it was nasty. I mean, it got cold, and kind of spitting snow. I remember Jack Kinkle had one of those propane radiant heaters. They knew it was going to be bad. They set up a kind of a tent thing on pit lane. And they set that tent thing up, and they had that propane heater down there. I'm telling you, what's the truth? With that thing full blast, you could not feel any heat coming off of it. It's so cold and windy. So finally, I brought my pickup truck down and parked it. Somehow I got it down there on pit lane and parked it there so I could get in out of the cold. And this is dark now. It's dark. And I don't remember a whole lot of the details. I've tried to forget them. Somewhere in the middle of the night, Trice's brother Sean was driving the car. This is the funniest experience I ever had in racing, and I've had a lot of funny ones, but this is by far the funniest one. His brother is kind of a tall, gangly guy, real easygoing guy, and Sean was in the car. I'm in the truck. And we'd already serviced the car, so it was ready to run for quite a while. I'm sitting in the front seat of my truck. I've got the radio on. We have radio communications with the driver at all times. I'm sitting there smoking cigarettes, got the radio on, freezing my ass off. I'd turn the truck on, let it run, blow heat every now and then. Well, somewhere along the way, I think we had to stop and do a pit stop. Maybe that's what I'm thinking about. So I went to get help. Well, I couldn't find anybody. Trice was asleep under a table up in the clubhouse. Rick Sosa was asleep. There's a little sofa, little love seat kind of thing. He was asleep on that. The other guys, they'd gone down to the garage. They were all asleep down there, frozen to death. I'm not sure. So I think Sean had to stop, and he and I he had to get out of the car to make his pit stop. Got him going again, and I fell asleep, and something woke me up. I guess Sean screaming on the radio woke me up and said, Joe, I'm coming in. I hit the wall. I'm coming in. I hit the wall. Okay, Sean, we'll bring it on in. So he finds his way in. And I'm telling you, there were so many cars running off the track that night, they might as well have been running in the dirt because you could not see anything. I mean, it was so freaking slick. Yep. Just the lights that you had on the car, there's not a light on that racetrack whatsoever.
It was terrifying.
Yeah, that's scary.
Racing pitch dark. So Sean finally comes in, Go run over there and see what's up. He jumps out of the car. He said, Joe, I'm sorry. Wrecked your car. I said, Sean, what happened? He said, well, there was this oily spot there down the front straight. I hit it, and the car spun, and I couldn't help it and went into the wall. So I got looking at it. Well, he had backed the rear quarter of the car into the wall. Not real hard, but it pushed it in some. Actually, it wasn't even enough to completely knock out the brake light on that corner.
No, it's still there.
It broke the lens and bent the fender in, all kinds of stuff. Sean, he's still standing there apologizing while I'm looking at the car. The John fixed it. Oh, I'm sorry. So, you got somebody else to get in the car? I said, Sean.
Nope.
No. As a matter of fact, no.
In that car.
And I'm looking at the car here. You still got brake lights. I don't see anything mechanically wrong with the car. I said, Bud, you're going to have to get back in the car and drive it some more. He said, oh, all right. Well, I guess I will. Sean gets back in the car and finishes his stint. And then whoever, I don't remember, it probably was dawn by the time that was over with, and then the next guy got in the car.
Yeah, If you talk about the 37 to people who were there, they start twitching a little bit. I mean, it was just, it was a rough experience for those who
that
survived.
The 99 car, which is the car I was talking about, the car Sean was driving, my car at the time. Somebody had gone off during the day. Maybe you. I don't remember. It was you.
It wasn't me.
It was Keith, I think, that went off and cracked the oil pan, and we had to come in and fix that.
Well, we were doing brakes, weren't we? We brought it in to swap out the brake pads.
Maybe that's what
because we can't run 37 hours on one set of brakes. We brought it in the garage to change it, and we started to move it back, and there was a giant puddle of oil under it. We're like, oh,
that's
shit.
Exactly what it was. So we ended up taking epoxy.
JB Weld.
JB Weld cleaned off the crack as best we could. It's got an aluminum pan. We cleaned that crack off as best we could. Smeared some JB Weld under there, put a heater under the thing, because it's so freaking cold. JB Weld would have never cured.
Yep.
Put some kind of heater under it. Got that kind of half-assed package, but poured oil back in it. And I think Trice, I don't know if you were the first one out in the car, but we ran up until the middle of the afternoon. Were you in it when it finally expired? Or was
I was
in
it. I was in one car there, and I don't remember if it was this race or another race, but I was driving the car. It was daylight, and all of a sudden, I couldn't see anything because of the smoke in the cockpit.
No, that was it. That was it.
I mean, I couldn't see out the windshield because there was just smoke everywhere. So I thought the car was on fire. So I'm like, I'm on fire. I'm coming in. I'm on fire.
That was a JB Weld gave out.
Yeah, and it was just dumping oil out the front of it.
It made it until 3 hours till the end
of the race. Yeah.
And I think we still placed 10th in
something
that
like
car.
That. It was.
The other car, the green car, it had labored long the whole time. It was still running pretty good at the end. They finished third. Our other co-team finished third that day in the 37.
When we pulled I remember when we were putting them on the trailer, and we put the green car up on the trailer, and it rolled up on the trailer, and the exhaust system fell on, just fell out from underneath.
Fell off of it as soon as it got up on the trailer. It's unbelievable.
Convenient place to fall.
Yeah, just strap it on and we'll get it on.
Yeah.
So guys, we have gone an hour on this. I think it's time we take another break.
Sure.
Yep.
And we're going to come back and we'll let Jay. By the way, do you want to say anything more about racing, Jay?
Oh, no, it's fine. I enjoy myself listening to your guys' stories, honestly.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
You got earphones on. I can't see if you got blood running.
Oh, no.
No. Race talk as we've been doing.
No, I just want to talk about my college experience with racing.
Okay.
It was good listening to this. I've always enjoyed just watching racing. My dad, growing up, used to watch F1 and Superbike all the time on Sundays. I used to really enjoy that, watching it with him. So it was great. I've always been, fascinated by racing and engineering. So.
And that's why you're building cars.
Yeah,
now,
right?
Yeah,
that's why I work for.
Now you build cars. Now you build cars for real.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to fade us out.